Richard D. Hall. You there, Rich?
Good evening, Dean. Good evening, Simon.
I did. How's life up there on the Starship over Scotland?
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. I'd like to just say hello to all of the listeners, and especially the small furry creatures who are listening from Alpha Centauri.
So, we're always regulars.
Yeah, how many planets do you get broadcast on? Sorry,
well, it's not. We've never done a survey yet, but you know, quite a few, hopefully.
Yeah, radio waves don't stop at the atmosphere, do they? So.
Yeah, that's good. So, just before we go on, further there, Rich, you know, the Rich Planet Starship there was on controversial TV on Sky Channel 200. So
yeah.
For the listeners who maybe you watch the show or they haven't seen it yet, because of the controversy around controversial TV, I mean, the issues it's facing, what's going to be happening to the Starship show?
Right, well, I'll give you a little bit of background first as to how I got started at Edge Media Television.
Okay.
It would be round about probably just under 2 years ago. They contacted me. They'd recently set the channel up in 2008, and they wanted to discuss a lot of controversial topics, but in the mainstream media for reasons that we are all aware of, because they're being suppressed.
Absolutely.
And they particularly liked my website because I'd set up this website in 2008, beginning of 2008, and had a lot of information on there. And I'd started posting videos of me basically talking about different UFO cases. So they picked up on that and they said, well, have you got any material you can send us? And I sent them a DVD that I'd made, and I said, well, I can make that into 6 half-hour shows if you like. And it was then that they said yes, and I said, well, I need to get a proper professional camera, which I got hold of one. I borrowed one, and then I started making programs for them, and that's how it all started at Edge Media. And
yeah.
I've since made 4 series of 6 shows, so 24 shows plus 2 sort of full-length documentaries as well, and they've all been screened on Edge Media. And it is a shame that it's sort of come to an end, because I know that there is a rescue mission, but I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I think it's I don't hold out much hope personally for it.
For controversial TV, Channel 200.
Is there any chance of any of the other shows moving with you, Richard?
That's a good question, because one thing I haven't mentioned is that what happened was I sent them a program. I started making a new series called The Rich Planet Starship, which was more of a chat show based program. I built a little studio in County Durham for that program, so that I didn't have to travel down to Milton Keynes and use their studio. And you know, it was getting a bit difficult using the living room, you know, to shoot programs in. So I built this studio in a sort of an old derelict building, and the idea was to try and get more up to the minute topical features into the show. So if something came up on the news, and I could then comment on it, and then it would go out on air maybe 2 or 3 days after. So we had this setup going where I would transfer the TV programs via FTP, the file transfer protocol, across the internet essentially, and they would then broadcast the programs within a few days. But probably I've only done maybe half a dozen of those Rich Planet Starship shows. I sent them another program, and I got an email saying, oh, the channel has been sold, and they won't be broadcasting any new material, including the new show that I'd sent them. So essentially there was no one there to put the new programs on. And then I hear about this rescue mission. So I'm a little bit confused about it, to be honest, because I was told that they'd been sold, and I even know the name of the company they've been sold to. They're a company which make pornography, and they are going to change that. They've essentially bought the channel slot. I think on Sky there are a limited number of actual slots, and in order to get your slot on Sky, you essentially need to buy out an existing channel that has an existing slot. So they've bought Edge Media to get that slot. Now the channel number, I believe, will be changing to a subscription channel, so that they can then have a subscription pornography-based channel. That's what I understand. So I think this rescue mission, if it's going to go ahead, it won't be broadcasting on 200. They'll have to then acquire another channel, as far as I'm aware. I mean, the people who've bought it are just broadcasting repeats up until, I guess, they get their programs in place to broadcast on that channel. So when I heard this, I've just started ringing around other channels, and I'd already approached channel 201, which was originally the Unexplained channel. Previously, before that, it was called the Paranormal channel, and that was run by Yvette Fielding, who was is an ex-Blue Peter presenter who's famous for doing. Yes, she does the ghost hunting programs, Most Haunted. For that, I think that was bought in January or February this year. So the couple that owned it, Yvette and Carl, they weren't making any money on that, so they've sold it to this company called Information TV. So I approached them, and they bit my hand off, really. They said, "Oh yeah, we'll have that show, no problem." And they've put it on at a prime time, 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock. So they are marketing that as one of their main programs, and they're also going to show repeats of all of the Rich Planet programs that I've made. So I'm actually quite excited about this move, albeit I'm very sad that some of the programs on Edge Media Television were absolutely superb. And, you know, I've learnt as much from Edge Media Television as I have from any other source, any internet source. It opened my eyes, and it actually encouraged me to make, you know, more searching programs myself and go into other areas. It was Edge Media that pushed me not just to study UFOs, but to study, you know, the New World Order, the banking system, false flag terrorism, you name it. All of these new areas that I'm now covering on the Rich Planet Starship.
Yeah, I can vouch for that myself. Actually, Edge Media was seminal in getting me a giant leap forward in my understanding of stuff that was going on, and with it happened to come into my life at a time when I needed to know that I wasn't the only one that was thinking about all this stuff, and the fact that I found Edge Media almost by accident was it is a crying shame if we can't salvage something out of it, I think. So.
I guess we'll all just have to watch this space for the time being. Excuse the pun, but if anybody wants to, in the meanwhile, keep up to speed on what's happening here with the Rich Planet Starship and that channel, and also watch the archived Starship shows, they're available on your website. Yeah,
yes,
richplanet.net.
That's right. Yeah, all the W's. richplanet.net. I think I've got about 10 shows up on there now. I've just finished making another one about 9/11, a second 9/11 program with Andrew Johnson, and I've got another an interview with Muad'Dib, who made the film 7/7 Ripple Effect, which we're going to talk a little bit about later, about the 7/7 tube bombings.
Yeah. You do cover several of these different issues in your shows. They're really great shows. But your main forte, you say it started out in UFOs. Could you just explain, Rich, how long you've been...
Radio.com.
Hello, thanks, Finn. So we're back with Northeast Truth, and Richard D. Hall. So that case you were just describing there, Richard, the Berwyn Mountain in Wales, 1974, it echoes the case of the Kecksburg incident in America, where this light zigzagged through the sky and then crashed in the Kecksburg forest. And then again, the military were there within moments, and they hauled this, what people describe to be an acorn-shaped craft, away on the back of a truck covered with a tarpaulin.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, and I believe there's actually a monument in the town there, which is a replica of this UFO, which people saw, as you say, under a tarpaulin on the side of a truck being hushed away by the military. I mean, other than that, I don't know a great deal more about that particular case, but there are alleged to have been at least sort of, you know, between sort of 6 and 12 of these events in the US, starting with, well, before Roswell, there was one in Missouri in 1940, I believe that was. The Americans have recovered several alleged alien craft, and they have gleaned technology from it. And one of the books written about such activities is Philip J. Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, where he describes how various pieces of technology were derived from that craft. One of them was Kevlar, which is used in body armor, fiber optics, and possibly even transistors.
Yeah. Richard, can I just ask you, as like I said, I've sort of come at the whole UFO thing as I have always been interested in it, but I haven't I'm on the periphery of it in the modern sort of scene, if you like. Mm-hmm. Now, can you just explain, because I'm sure there's quite a few of our listeners who sort of only peripherally knowledgeable about the UFO thing. Do you think that there's? I understand there's multiple different types of aliens and different crafts and whatnot. Do you think there's actually a war going on between us and them, or are they in cahoots with the government? Is there different factions? Because I honestly ask that because I wonder whether they're trying to hide the fact that they've got another juicy piece of kit, and they're as much trying to hide, the Americans say, trying to hide it from the Russians, and the British trying to hide what they've got from the Canadians, and this whole same sort of thing you see in every other facet of life going on with them. What, from your inside perspective, how would you see the whole thing?
Right. Well, I think there are different people who have different accounts who have allegedly seen extraterrestrials, either dead or alive, and you put these people into categories such as very believable, very unbelievable, question mark. So, based on everything that I've learned, I read a very interesting book called The Gods of Eden by William Bramley, I think it is.
Right.
And essentially, you have to go back centuries, millennia, to actually answer that question. Because if you accept what people like Lloyd Pye, a very, very shrewd, intelligent researcher, I believe the majority of his stuff is true.
That's Lloyd Pye of the Star Child School.
Yes, but the Star Child skull is absolutely phenomenal in itself. He's got a skull, a 900-year-old skull, which he has had DNA testing done on it, and the mother is a human. The father is provably from this DNA. It is not human. Okay.
Yeah,
now,
I'm familiar with that. Yeah,
and it has certain physiological characteristics which are not seen in any other creature on the planet. It has fibers. The actual skull material is unlike bone. It's like tooth enamel. It's far harder than bone and much, much thinner than a normal skull. And it has these fibers in it which are not seen on any other creature on the planet. And these fibers give this skull strength. And he's got this smoking gun evidence that this is at least half extraterrestrial. And the scientific community don't even pick up on it. It doesn't get on the news. Yet he's had the DNA testing done. Now, if you look at Lloyd Pye's other work, prior to him getting this skull, because he was given that skull by MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and the reason why they gave him the skull is because he had done a lot of work on anthropology and on human origins. So they thought, because he had an alternative view of human origins, they thought he would be the best person to investigate this skull. But essentially,
qualifications, but with an open mind with it, sort of thing.
Yes, yeah. Now this guy, if you read his work, he believes that the human race Homo sapien is no older than about 250,000 years old, and that we came to Earth, we were effectively created on Earth at that time by another race, by a custodial race, and this matches all of the anthropological records. There are no bones which match Homo sapien older than about 200,000 years old. None, not one. Now, if you have an anthropologist and they tell you that there is, ask them to
Shea Hall, that's if the Men in Black haven't got him.
No, I'm still here, Dean. I'm still here.
Cool. Okay, yeah, just before the break there, we mentioned two issues. One was the animal mutilations. If you want to address that one first, give us your input on that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I started looking into this about, 15, 16 months ago, and I met up with a group called the Animal Pathology Field Unit, who've been investigating it for over 10 years. Now, people who are not familiar with subjects related to ufology may not have heard of it, but the phenomenon started in sort of the late 1960s, predominantly in America, and grew through the 1970s, where animals, predominantly cattle, in the United States were being found with surgical-type injuries on their bodies, and the farmers were found dead, obviously, with these surgical holes in them, with organs very cleanly removed and sometimes exsanguinated of blood, and often the holes in the body were